there's one phrase in this story that I really love. It's, and this is my phrase: if I stop and help, what might happen to me? The guys could come out of the hills. They could attack me. I could be late. I could lose my status. I could be beat up too. I could be just like this guy. What would happen to me if I stop? And I think the other question that could go through the mind is, what will happen to him if I don't? And those are great questions. And I think it talks about human nature and who is your neighbor. And I think your neighbor is not the person who holds you in contempt. But in this situation, the Samaritan was the neighbor, but they all held Samaritans in contempt. I think there's a great play on words here about how to treat people and how to better value humanity, which comes back to this: love your enemies. It's just, what it means is love those who, it's easy to love those who love you. It's easy to love those who do things for you, but I tell you, the person who's against you, still love them, and don't treat them with contempt. It doesn't mean go take them a bouquet of flowers. It means don't allow this poison to enter your soul, because I don't think that's healthy.
No. It is counterintuitive, though.
It is. I agree. It is.
So what do you think is a good approach to changing the way your brain handles those things? Because you can kind of step back and you can see how, okay, cognitively, I can see how this makes sense. Rationally, I can see how this makes sense, right? But I got this other part of my brain that's just like, I can't stand that guy. I'm going to run him over if I see him on the side of the road.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, the rational mind doesn't seem to be the mind that's always the strongest.
No, but I think sometimes that's where reflection comes in, and that's where I have a friend of mine who's excellent responder with thought, but his knee-jerk response is terrible. If you come up and push him, he's going to counterpunch you. He's an expert in martial arts. He will hurt you if you push him. And if someone insults him or says something strong to him, his mouth is just as strong as his physical response. And I've discovered this person, I've counseled him over the years, a very close friend of mine, said, if you just step back for just a moment, don't respond immediately. Take a deep breath or two. And I've had this person write responses to something that had happened rather than knee-jerk response, and his written response or his later response verbally is as eloquent as it possibly could be. I long to be able to respond the way he responds when he takes a moment. But I cringe when he doesn't take that deep breath because, that's just the response mechanism. And I think you're right. It's counterintuitive. And sometimes we have to train ourselves not to respond quickly, to take a deep breath and think about it just a moment longer. And none of us always do that. But when we can do it sometimes, at least we're showing some progress.
Yeah. You could even be preemptive about it. You could not wait for an incident, in other words, but actually stop and, as a part of your quiet time, think about who are the people that probably consider me an enemy, and actually pray good things for them.
Yeah.
Well,
even that just in and of itself, it's got to be life-changing. Mm-hmm. I mean, wishing good on those who wish evil or bad or malevolence on you is, that's a therapy in and of itself, I feel like.
Let's say you can't even go that far. But I think it's progress to say, but I don't wish them bad.
Right.
I don't loathe them. I don't devalue them. I don't hold them with contempt. I just treat them value neutral. Sometimes that is very much a positive statement.
Well, I think it's hard to get to, if 100 is the best on the scale, I think it's hard to go from 0 to 100 without going through
definitely
99 steps between. I mean, you have to get to neutral before you can get to positive in some regard.
What Brett said earlier, I think, was excellent. That preemptive. When you get in a situation, I may be in this situation to where I'm going to confront this person down the road, whoever that is for you. And so it's nice to have something already. I think after I've thought through 6 alternatives, my best alternative would be whatever it is.
Have a plan.
So that you're not blindsided by this. You know it's going to happen.
Right.
You're going to see this person.
Right.
And you can choose to either go up and say, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Hey, it's good to see you again. And be this. Or you can go up and kick him in the shins.
Yeah, you don't want to be reactionary.
I heard what you said again about me to so-and-so.
Yeah.
And you're right. I am that way.
It reminds me of Princess Bride, the guy that's always like, I am blah, blah, blah. I don't remember.
You killed my father.
Yeah, he's got this whole thing rehearsed.
Jose Montana, whatever.
And it's funny because it is kind of a plan. He's been waiting his whole life, has been leading up to this moment to say this thing.
Yeah.
And he's got it down. So having that plan is a great way to say, for those that you're going to run into that you may consider an enemy or something akin to it, having something planned out for how you won't react in a negative or hurtful or contemptuous way.
Oh, I agree. But even the Good Samaritan story, you go through the story, the priest goes by, the Levite goes by, they leave the guy bloodied, potentially dead because they're busy or they're afraid or whatever. But can you imagine, in reflection, both of those guys possibly saying, I wasn't at my best today. Now that I think about it, I should have stopped. And I think we all have that feeling. I could have done something more than I did. The next time something like this happens, I'm going to be the better version of me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the growth that we like to see in our own lives.
Yeah.
The next time I'll do better.
When I occupy the place in this story of the Levite or the priest in one incident, doesn't mean that I can't be the Samaritan in the next.
Correct. Exactly. No. I think that's
one of the things that you touched on, though, that I think is important. I don't know if you knew this, but part of being preemptive is even the taking the time to pray or meditate on behalf of people that have some contempt for you or whatever, because that's changing your brain. We know this. Yeah. This is scientifically proven. So you change the way that you think. That's what you meant by life-changing, right?
Right, yeah.
And then the ability to reflect, like you pointed out, comes easier and easier.
Agreed.
So you don't react in life really to very much at all. Because if you can conquer that, and part of that would be, like last week's emphasis would be to not only love those enemies out there, but to focus on where it is that I treat myself with contempt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Because really, isn't your ability to love others directly tied to how much you can love yourself?
Absolutely.
At least on some level.
Well, it's a whole thing in and of itself.
Yeah, that's another podcast.
Okay, go ahead.
But I think you're making a great point that you speak it into existence. That sometimes when I speak that I'm grateful, I become grateful. Someone gives me a Chia Pet, and I go, that's the stupidest gift I've ever given. I throw it in the backseat of the car and just going, that's ridiculous. What I really wanted was, something else, a stuffed animal. And at the end of the day, the appropriate response is, oh, thank you. Thank you for the gift. And you begin to speak thanks. And then all of a sudden you begin to be grateful for that and everything that comes along your way. And sometimes it's about training your mind, training your speech, be positive. I think Sean Akers said some very good stuff about this. And I just think that's important. And I think it ties into what you were saying, too, mm-hmm. about I love myself because I give myself permission to be loved.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. I'm a good person. And no one's perfect, but I'm a good person. I try to do good things, and it's okay to feel good about that. Mm-hmm. And I want good things to happen to others around me, even those who may not know me or like me, or maybe they do know me and don't like me. I don't live my life based on having to have everyone's approval. I base my life on living what I think is the right thing to do, and that gives me a better sleep.
I think with the added caveat of if you are a good person, I don't think you should be saying that and acting like you're all good and you should have this massive amount of self-love. If you're a terrible individual, that's wreaking havoc on everyone's life.
Because that would just be self-enabling.
Yeah. I think there's, and I may be the one, this may be more of a contentious subject for me, because I do think there is a balance between loving yourself to a certain degree, which I think is you have to accept who you are and what you have. But I also don't think that the landing there is the place that you want to land.
Yes, it is. Here's the reason. Well, let me qualify that.
Landing,
what you're really pointing out is the complexity of what it means to love yourself. Sometimes loving yourself is to pay attention to where you are falling short is to pay attention to your character defects without treating yourself with contempt.
Right. So you'd say the line is
still loving yourself.
Yes. But I think that needs to be, a lot of times I hear like, you're perfect the way you are. That whole kind of thing comes out.
That's nonsense.
I
hear that a lot.
And I'm sure you do.
But having meditated on it, I've come to the conclusion they're right.
Who is it that's saying that?
Well, it's definitely not my wife of 43 years.
Yeah, for sure. I get annoyed with that because I think anybody that says you shouldn't change anything about yourself or you shouldn't be working to improve yourself, you're missing it.
No, I agree with that.
But I also agree with you. Maybe the line is, we use this word, been using it constantly, contempt. When you roll your eyes at yourself or you say, I can't even believe that you would be this thing and what's wrong with you, and you start having those just terrible, awful, self-destructive thoughts and dialogue with yourself. So,
but sometimes Christianity has done that. The first thing we need to do is stand up in the morning, look in the mirror, and say, "You are a dirty, filthy, rotten sinner."
Right.
There's nothing good in you whatsoever.
And just go, that is so contrary to what I think is appropriate for human psyche and what Jesus would say. He'd say, "Come on, get out of that. Get behind me, Satan." I mean, you're a valuable person. You're one of God's kids, and you have great things. Now, we all have the positives, and we all have our shadow. We all know that. But the more I embrace my entirety of who I am, and the more I affirm that person that's in the process of growing, but doesn't mean I'm not a good person, but doesn't mean there's not other levels that we can attain, but we at least confess today, hey, my heart is good. I'm trying to live a life that's...
Who is it that said the line between good and evil is
Solzhenitsyn,
drawn down every man's heart or something?
Yeah. But what does he know?
I don't know.
What's really amazing is if we quote somebody as if it makes it true. I heard someone quote someone this week and go, "Oh, well, this is what they said." Therefore, I go,
I don't think it makes it true. I just think that it's a very concise way of saying something that resonates deeply with what you know is
split heart.
All right.
Within my strongly divided heart.
I think we've been doing enough of this.
All right.
This has been good.
It's been good, and I'm looking forward to this weekend, and I'm looking forward to talking about it again next week.